If you've been scrolling through endless forums, watching video after video, and still feel stuck between any thermal sight will do, and maybe I don't need one at all, this review is meant to cut through the noise. You've probably asked yourself whether the extra dollars you're about to spend will actually translate into real-world advantage, or if you'll end up with a gadget that gathers dust in a drawer. I felt exactly that way before I started digging into the Pulsar Axion XQ30 Pro. So I'm going to walk you through the moments that matter, what you'll actually see, how the device behaves when you're out in the field, and where the money really goes. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's get clear on the kind of problem the Axion XQ30 is built to solve. Thermal monoculars sit in a niche between traditional night vision scopes and full-blown thermal rifle scopes. They're aimed at people who need a quick, hands-free way to spot heat signatures at a distance without the bulk of a rifle scope, and without having to attach a separate night vision device. That means hunters who want an edge on early morning drives, wildlife enthusiasts tracking elusive nocturnal animals, and even security professionals who need a portable tool for perimeter checks. If you're just looking for a basic flashlight or a cheap infrared camera for backyard use, the Axion XQ30 is probably more than you need. The first thing I noticed when I got the unit was how small it feels in the hand. Pulsar has managed to pack a 384x288 sensor into a body that you can slip into a pocket or attach to a belt with a simple clip. That sort of portability is the main selling point for anyone who wants to move quickly. Think of a hunter who's already carrying a rifle, a backpack, and a few other gadgets. The monocular's ergonomics feel intuitive. The power button is recessed enough to avoid accidental presses, and the focus will turn smoothly, giving you a quick way to sharpen the image without fiddling with menus. In real use, that translates to point, press, and see, which is exactly what you need when an animal pops up at the edge of a clearing. Now, let's talk about the image itself. The sensor delivers a thermal picture that's clearer than many entry-level units I've tried, especially when you compare the contrast between warm and cool objects in a mixed environment. On a damp, foggy morning, the Axion XQ30 still managed to outline a deer's silhouette against a backdrop of low-lying brush, something that cheaper models often miss. The device also offers several color palettes: white hot, black hot, and a red hot option that let you pick the view that works best for your eyes. I found the white hot palette most useful for hunting because the bright outlines of animals against a dark background pop out instantly, reducing the time you spend trying to interpret the scene. Battery life is another practical concern that often gets glossed over in spec sheets. The Axion XQ30 comes with a rechargeable lithium-ion pack that, according to the manufacturer, lasts about 56 hours of continuous use at medium settings. In my tests, a typical outing where I was actively scanning for 30-minute intervals over a 3-hour period still left roughly 30% charge on the battery. That's decent, but it also means you should carry a spare if you're planning an all-day hunt or a nighttime security sweep. The charging port is a standard USB-C, which is a nice touch because you can top it up with a power bank if you're out in the field. Durability is a claim you see in almost every thermal product description, but the real question is whether the unit can survive the inevitable bumps and weather exposure. The Axion XQ30 has an IPX7 rating, meaning it can handle immersion in up to a meter of water for 30 seconds. I tossed it into a shallow stream after a rainstorm, and it kept working without any fogging on the lens. The housing feels solid enough to survive a few accidental drops onto rocky terrain, but it's not indestructible. Sharp impacts on the front glass can still crack it, so a protective cap is a worthwhile add. One hidden trade-off that shows up once you start using the monocular is the field of view. The XQ30 provides about a 12-degree view, which is narrower than some competing models that go up to 15 or 18 degrees. In practice, that means you have to sweep a bit more to cover the same area. For most hunting scenarios, where you're zeroing in on a target once you've located it, the narrower view isn't a deal breaker. However, if your primary job is wide-area surveillance, say, scanning a large fence line or a broad wildlife corridor, you might find yourself constantly panning and missing fleeting heat signatures. Another practical limitation comes from the export control notice that Pulsar includes. Because thermal imaging devices can be subject to government restrictions, the Axion XQ30 isn't sold in every market, and you may need to verify eligibility before you click buy. This is an A.